Yeah, hey
Self.
John, thanks for having me. Looking forward to this conversation. Yeah, so my name's Dan Lewer. Still a teacher, but I'm part time. I live on the Big Island of Hawaii, where I've been a teacher in different forms for about 15 years now. I still teach part time online. I go once a week into my old school and work with kids. And but what I do most of the time is I started a business, History for Humans, and I make resources, I create curriculum, and I coach history teachers. Cut the lecture and up the engagement, get kids doing meaningful, interesting work. So I'm really passionate about that. I've been a history teacher, yeah, like my whole time in education, been teaching history, really love it. Um, yeah, for let's see, 11 years, I was a full time classroom teacher, Title One, public school, rural, just beautiful little school, but some academic and different challenges with the school there, which we'll get into. And then besides that, I also work with the company that pretty much saved my teaching career when I didn't have any classroom management and I was just getting my
Mm.
butt kicked day in and day out. And that company is called Setting Limits. And we help schools that are struggling with classroom management transform and allow the teachers the ability to actually teach and not just manage kids and put out fires the whole time. And I'm really passionate about that
So
because
so how so how did
sorry,
that? How,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
there's a little
How
lag. I
there's
apologize.
a delay. Yeah, there's a lag. I'll wait. I'll let you finish because I do
Yeah.
hear the lag. I'll let you finish.
Yeah.
Go
So I
ahead.
got started with them. It's kind of a crazy story. So I was getting my butt kicked my first year and a half as a teacher. I was really struggling with classroom management. I was like, young, just out of college, super passionate about working with kids. And I was great at having really interesting lessons, cool activities for kids to do, like simulations and role plays and hands on projects. And I was great at connecting with kids, building those relationships, getting to know them, getting them to see that I care about them. I had that stuff down just kind of naturally. What I struggled with was actually holding kids accountable. I thought it was like mean or the kids wouldn't like me if I gave them consequences. And I just didn't know how to give consequences that were effective. So I was really lost. It was something that my teacher education program, they did a wonderful job in all the other parts, but just not with practical classroom management strategies. So I was really struggling and almost quit so many times my first year. I mean, I would be
Yeah.
hugging my pillow, not wanting to get out of bed because I was so scared of, I didn't know what nightmares were awaiting me. I thought I had a great lesson. I tried to tighten all the little parts up. The kids are really going to like this. This is really fun. And days would go pretty well. And then some days it would just be, what? And then my second year, I found this book called Setting Limits in the Classroom. And it was like the unlock that allowed me to actually learn how to hold kids accountable, set limits in a way that actually helped them and create a classroom culture and community that was focused on learning, where it wasn't like a punitive style of class. I always thought like you had to be punitive and like kind of bludgeon. And I didn't want to do that. Like I didn't want to bludgeon kids into compliance. But this taught actually how to hold kids accountable, set limits, be both firm and fair, and be both
Mhm.
respectful while getting respected by the kids. And so they wrote that book, and I read it so many times. I had notes inside and out, all the post-its highlighted. I would actually practice. What was great about this book, again, it's called Setting Limits in the Classroom. It has so many real scenarios that you would experience in the classroom. Like a kid is throwing something across the room, a kid is getting up out of his seat, a kid is, pulling the hair of the girl in front of him, that sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
Kid refuses to do work. And then it shows an ineffective way to do it, and then it shows an effective way to handle it. And I would actually practice how to handle those situations. And it was written more for elementary and maybe middle school, and I was teaching high school. So I would change the scenarios, and I would imagine the students like, okay, the kid is um, coming in late. How am I responding to that? Or the kid is just like turning his back to me. The kid is throwing the football up in the air. The girl has her makeup on and or makeup out and, putting on a whole clinic room on how to do a, makeup tutorial, and how I would respond to those. And I would practice until it became
Mhm.
second nature.
Mhm.
And that's what allowed me to learn how to manage students in a way that was, both firm and fair. And then I would give this book out to all the new teachers. When I became a better teacher over the years and my administration would have me mentoring new teachers on campus who were struggling, I would always give them the book. And I would just be like, you can thank me later, read this as many times as you want, take it. And I got so many notes from teachers over the years, like thanking me for recommending that book and giving it to them. Then when I started to do social media, I started to teach things right out of the book. And I would just be like, okay, you're struggling with classroom management. You don't need a whole bunch of bows and ribbons and things that look really cute. That's not what's going to solve your issues. Just buy this book and I'm going to teach you one thing that helped me. So I was just basically like promoting the book. I wasn't an affiliate or anything. And then I would just teach one of the lessons in the book step by step in a way that teachers could relate to and see, oh, okay, like what happens if it goes wrong? You're doing this and then the kid acts out or the kid's defiant or the kid is ignoring you. How do you respond? And I would just kind of chip away at that. And then one of the videos went pretty viral. It had like 1.5 million views. And the people who wrote the book, it came to their attention. And then they're like, oh, we need you to work with us because you do a really good job of teaching that. So they reached out to me. That this was just earlier last year.
That's awesome.
In like October. So I just started working with them like 6 and it's pretty cool. It's like when I think of like big picture, like holy moly, these guys saved my career just from now. We do a bunch of like workshops and we do trainings and teacher coaching and administration coaching and all this stuff. So it's pretty amazing to come full circle and be able to work with these amazing professionals, help teachers like struggling like I was 15 years ago. So long story. Sorry to just drop that all on you.
No. That's good. Good. Could we let's take an example out of the book.
Sure.
So let's say that a high school student has a whole female student is doing a whole makeup tutorial, like putting all kinds of makeup. And this is a real example. This happens in high school.
Yeah.
According to the book, what exactly would you do in a situation like that?
So you're in the middle of a lesson. Maybe you're doing direct instruction or maybe it's like small group work or whatever. You don't yell at Michelle from across the room. Michelle, put away your makeup. How many times? This is not a salon or whatever. You're going to try to, with as little friction as possible. So maybe if you're in direct instruction, you might say, okay, guys, I want everyone to just talk about this question here. And in 90 seconds, we're going to review together as a class. While all the other students are engaged and I'm not in the center of the room commanding their attention, I'm going to walk over to Michelle. I'm going to say, Michelle, this is not the time to be doing your makeup. Can you put this away and get back on track? Okay. And focus and follow along with the rest of the class. And Michelle might say, yeah, sure, you're right, and put it away. Or Michelle might just say, oh yeah, just give me another couple minutes. I'm almost done. I just got to finish this eye here. Right. And if you're a punitive teacher, you might lash out at her. No, Michelle, I told you, put that away right now. This is not the time to be doing your makeup. And then Michelle might have bump heads with you, right? Lock horns and want to turn this into a big theater episode for the class to enjoy and for her to get props that she can just pull your buttons, right? Like you're a puppet.
Mm-hmm.
And the permissive teacher might just say, okay, yeah, sure. Just finish up, do your other eyeliner, and then put it away so that we can, get you back on track. But then imagine 3 minutes later, she's doing more. Now she's doing her lips, right? Or now she's doing her hair, braiding the side, and not focused, not paying attention. And the other kids around her are noticing. A permissive teacher, again, might just this is who I was. I was the permissive teacher. I was the king of second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth chances, right? Because I didn't want to actually bump heads. So young Mr. Lewer, in my first year of teaching, would have walked over and been like, Michelle, I really need you to put that away. Like, I really want you to do well today. And you're already a little behind on your work. Michelle, can you put it away? And then she might be like, oh, all right, I'll put it away. Just give me a minute. But she might just keep kicking that can down the road because you're showing her with your actions that you're actually not going to hold her accountable. She can always just ask for another chance later. She can ask for forgiveness later. But what the book would teach is this. So imagine you said, Michelle, I need you to put it away. And she said, okay, I'm almost done. Just give me a second. And then I would say at that point, oh, I'm almost done. I'd be like, well, I'll give you 30 seconds and you need to put it away. Okay. And then get back on with the rest of us. And then I would go and help some other students and, or recommand the class because they had 1 minute to talk about, Genghis Khan, because I'm a history teacher. And I say, okay, get the class moving again. And then I'm noticing a couple minutes later, as I'm doing more direct instruction, she still hasn't put it away. Then I would give the class something else to do. All right, guys, you're going to work on problem number 3, read the passage and answer the questions. We'll reconvene in 10 minutes. I'm going to walk over to Michelle and I'm just going to say, Michelle, you can put it in your bag, your makeup right now, or you're going to put it on my desk and you'll get it at the end of the period. You just set a limit for her. You can do this or you can do this. What do you want to do? Michelle, you can put it in your bag and that's the end of it. Or if not, it's going to go on my desk and you can get it at the end of the period. What do you want to do? And then so if Michelle is a strong-willed kid who might be prone to defiance or has oppositional defiance, you gave that child what they like, which is having a little bit of control. You order them to do something. You said, you can do this or you can do this, put the ball in her court, and then don't be up in her face. You try to break all the tension you can, try to avoid all the confrontation that is possible. And then you say, yeah, what do you want to do? Hopefully she cooperates. If she doesn't, because maybe she's having a bad day, then you just say, okay, Michelle, now I need you to go put it on my desk and you'll get it at the end of the class. And then you just enforce that consequence. Ideal situation is she cooperated. If not, there's the consequence. But then imagine Michelle says, no, I'm not putting it on your desk. She's upset. She's had a rough day, whatever.
Yep.
Then I would do, and this is kind of how we got introduced to each other. Then I would just say, okay, if a kid is being outright defiant to me, because now maybe a couple other kids are like seeing what's going on. Is Michelle allowed in Mr. Lewer's room to just tell him no, that she really is in charge? That when it comes down to it, the person that sets the boundaries in the room and sets what's okay and what's not is the student, the most defiant student, or is it the teacher? So in that situation, if the kid is just being outright defiant and refusing to listen to me as a teacher when I've given them fair choices and tried to cool down the situation, then I would just say, okay, Michelle, you can either put it on my desk and get it at the end of the class, or I'm going to call security and they'll take it. And I don't know if you get it. Or if it was a worse behavior, or I'm going to call the office and I wouldn't have a kid removed for that. I would just say like, they'll take your makeup, whatever. I've never had that happen. But like it happens with a phone sometimes, right? Like a kid just refusing to get off their phone. Yeah, so you can put it in the phone cubby and get it at the end of class. But if you refuse, then security is going to have to take it, or you're going to have to bring it to the office. And I don't know when you're going to get it back, but that's on you. You can choose. So you just gave them a second choice. You can do this, face the consequence of putting the makeup on my desk, putting the phone in the cubby, or you face this other consequence, and you get to choose. What do you want? Again, you're putting it in there. And then maybe because Michelle's upset and a little angry, and maybe you're getting angry too, because she's not cooperating and you're trying to teach the class and all this, then you might just say, Michelle, I'll give you a minute to make your decision, just to let it cool down, right? And you walk away. And then if she doesn't, then I would pick up the phone and just say, hi, I have a student who's refusing to turn this over. Can someone come and take it? That's it. And I rarely have to do that. Like after like my second year teaching, when I started to apply setting limits and when I got better at classroom management, I would have to send a kid out or have something taken from a kid like a couple of times a year. Yeah. Right. But I think if you don't have that and you just allow a kid to just be outright defiant, I think it's just sending a message to the kids that, okay, all you have to do is really push me into a corner, and then the rules, you're allowed to make them up. That's how I kind of see it. And it really worked for me. And that's what I see. And I think kids actually like that. I think they want even those strong-willed kids want to know that there are limits. And so long as you're operating here, you can be successful in this class.
Now, why did you have to do it your second year? Why was it that, and then how does relationships play into this?
Yeah. So relationships are key. I mean, it's a cliche to be like, oh, kids don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. But like, really, relationships, when a kid knows you care about them and a kid likes being in your class and a kid knows that you're actually trying, even though you're going to teach them and maybe have a high bar for them, that you want them to reach it and you'll find ways for them. There's nothing that's more important than that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, and I understood that my teacher education program did a great job of instilling that in me. But at the same time, I believe relationships are not enough. That you're still going to have kids that are strong willed, and it's just in their nature for them to test and for them to push and for them to challenge you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not because they're bad kids. Strong willed kids are not bad. They're not stupid. They're just strong willed, and they're trying to figure
They're
out what they
kids.
can get.
They're kids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're kids,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they're going to test, and they're going to make mistakes,
Mm-hmm.
act out because and just naturally by impulsivity, or because they're strong-willed and they are actually testing you. You know, strong-willed kids, they're researchers. They're trying to figure out, what can I get away with? Can I throw this across the
Right.
room? Can I call out of the middle class? Can I get up out of my seat? Can I turn around and play rock,
Mm-hmm.
paper, scissors in the middle class, or play cards? Or so they're doing research and they're seeing how you respond, right? And um, so just having relationships is not enough when you have kids who are going to be pushing and testing you, just because that's who they are and how they are and their kids. So at a certain point, you still need to be able to hold kids accountable.
You need to do
You still
both.
need, yeah, you need to do both. Relationships are fundamental, but you need that. And I just did not have that capability when I was a new teacher.
Can you have
So yeah,
can you have one without the other? Can you be successful with one and not do the other?
I depending on what you mean by success, I've seen classes where it's like kind of a tyrannical teacher, no nonsense, very reserved, held off. But kids are never going to be, they're never going to do great things in that room. They're never going to take risks. They're never going to allow themselves to be vulnerable because they're scared of being bludgeoned, right? They're scared of the consequence. So they might behave and the teacher might be able to teach and they might do their work a good amount of the days, right? But then sometimes they're going to bump heads really hard. Those strong-willed kids, those challenging kids are going to bump heads and it's going to get ugly. Um, and but let's see on the other side, if you just have the relationships and the kids know you love them and care about them and you have really good lessons, but you don't have any ability to really give consequences or hold them accountable or manage them when they step out of line, I think you're always going to be at the whim of what those strong-willed, like your most challenging students, your most difficult students, I think you're going to be on the whim of how they're feeling that day, right? Some days
Yeah.
they might come in and you have a great lesson and they're really into it. And it's going to be great because if you get those kids interested and engaged, it could be awesome, right? Because those strong-willed kids, difficult kids, they have other skills and a lot of them are really good leaders. So if they're buying into a lesson, you might get the whole class to just buy in, right? But if they're having a bad day or they don't feel like doing the work or they think this lesson is stupid or it sucks or it's boring, then if you can't actually get them to cooperate and to meet the expectations, I think just the relationship is not going to be enough all the time. Sometimes it will. Hey, I really need you to do this. Hey, like I care about you. This is due at the end of the class. I know you want your grade up. Sometimes that can get you somewhere, but I don't think it's enough by itself. You need both.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you on that. I think you need both. I think you need to be able to set limits and hold a strong line, but then you have to build that relationship. And then students need to, you need to make that clear to the students, right? I'm growing up, I'm a student with difficult behavior and I'm always calculating. I'm always trying to test limits. I did it with my parents. I did it with my teachers. Test the limits. How
Yeah.
far can I go? How far can I go before, they stop me? And if nobody's going to stop me, then I'm
Yeah.
going to take it all. I'm going to take it all. If you're not going to stop me from taking control of this situation, then guess what? I'm going to
Mhm.
control everything. Everything in this room, I'm going to control. Um, and so that's the mind of a student with
Yeah.
difficult behavior. And if you don't set them limits, like you could be the friendliest person in the world, but if that student wants that thing or to do that thing and you're just friendly, you're just building that relationship and you can't set that limit, they're going
Yeah.
to take advantage of it. They're definitely going to take advantage of it. It's that idea of, you got to be as gentle as a dove, but wise as a serpent. You got to do both. You got to be gentle and wise. You got to
Mhm.
be kind, but then you got to be able to
Yeah.
draw that line. You have to be both,
And
And so I've seen that with myself as a student with difficult behavior, as an adult. If, when I was a teacher, if I felt as though my administration wasn't holding people accountable. Like we didn't have to turn in on this date. We didn't have to do that. You're not asking for this thing. Well, then I don't have to do anything now because you're not holding me accountable. So, as an adult, I've seen that, and so here I am in a school, it's here's another cliche. It's the idea of you'd rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war, right? And so here I am, a warrior in a garden, and I'm able to, for the majority of everybody, kind, friendly, building relationships. How's it going with everybody? Just everybody. But the minute I notice that, you're doing something else. You're being calculated here. You're trying to manipulate the situation. That's where the red flag goes off. It's like, okay, we're gonna play a different game here. We're playing a whole different game with you because I have to now draw that line. I have to draw that line, and like you said, give them two options. Give them some options. Put them in control. That's a great tactic. Give them, hey, look it, you messed up. You're gonna get this or that. This is gonna happen, or you could do this. You got to choose. And then I'm just here, and you're not emotional about the situation. You're not upset. You're not your buttons aren't visibly being pushed. And you are like, okay, you did that. I'm just here to keep everybody safe. I'm just here to enforce the rules. So if you're doing this thing, then I'm gonna have to do this or that, and that's just what it is. I still love you. Tomorrow I'll still say hi to you. I'll still welcome you to school. But it's not okay for you to be unsafe the way you're being unsafe. And so this is what's gonna have to be done.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing that I really struggled with, I like you said, being matter of fact, not getting emotionally wrapped, because then the kids feel it, right. Like if you're taking their behavior personally, and 99% of the time it's not about you, the kids are bringing in this like invisible backpack of all the things that are struggling they're struggling with, their emotional baggage, and we don't see it. What we see is them telling us no, that this class is stupid, what they're acting out. We see ignoring us, right? And it's easy to get upset and to get angry and to like have your emotions make things worse, right? Because then the kid's going to feed off of that. So when I was practicing giving consequences in front of like the mirror, I was checking, matter of fact, am I getting riled up? How's my posture? Do I seem aggressive? Do I seem defeated? Because I would kind of like, I was scared, especially when you're with the difficult kids.
Yeah.
I was scared to give a consequence because I didn't know what they would do, right? And if they bumped me, my first year teaching, I had this one class. I was hired 6 weeks into the school year, and I had this one class of juniors that my neighboring teachers told me at lunch, and they were coming in after lunch, and they said, "Oh, they're having bets on how quickly they can get you to quit," because it was just sub getting turned over in this class. So a sub would come in, they would chew them out, chew them up, spit them out. And eventually, after 6 weeks of school, they hired me. And I'm coming in young, out of college, super passionate, super inspired to work with these kids and teach them all the history. They had a whole different, they had a whole different goal. Yeah, how can we get this guy to quit, right? And there was like
agenda.
A lot of the football players on that team, on the team in that class. And one of them actually just came back from a suspension. He poured Visine into a substitute's coffee and sent her to she went to the hospital. And first day of class, he gets into a fight with another kid in my class. So I'm just trying to get their like nameplates down and get them to do a student survey. And he was like refusing to do anything. And I didn't know how to handle it. So I kept telling him, I need you to make this nameplate, or I need you to do the student survey next. And he's getting riled up. And then another kid started making fun of him. They go at it in my class. And I was just like, I couldn't even think, right? Like in that moment, because it's like fight or flight, and you're taking it all personally. But I was getting so riled up. But one thing I did that was good, after security came and like removed the student, I just told the class 1 minute, and I closed the door, and I just like took some deep breaths. And I went back in, and I'm like, that's unacceptable in here, but I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I am your teacher, and I am super excited to be at this school and to work with all of you. And I'm going to teach the heck out of U.S. history to you guys. You don't even know what's coming at you. So I'm giving you guys another couple minutes to finish up your surveys, and then we're opening up the books and getting going.
Hmm.
So, but not taking it personally. It just didn't come naturally. Not getting heated and
Got
riled
it.
up in the moment. It's tough. So just knowing, like when I'm coaching a lot of teachers with setting limits,
Hmm.
not getting riled up. Try to stay matter of fact. When you give consequences, just say it matter of factly and let the kid choose. Not anxious, not angry, not like punitive. Matter of fact, cool as a cucumber. And it takes practice because it's hard. We naturally feed off other energy, right? So yeah, I hear you there. What can I ask you, John? What when you're your assistant
Yeah.
principal role, when you're
Yeah.
working with teachers that are struggling, are you finding they more struggle with the relationships, or they more struggle with with giving consequences, or is it maybe something a third or fourth thing like not having good procedures and routines, or not being able to engage kids in lessons? Like, what do you notice as the
All
teachers?
of it, all of the above. What you just said is all of it right there. That's all of it, right? So let's just take the idea. Let's just take an idea. Let's take the idea that you don't care about the students, right? You just don't. And the students could sense it. They could smell it. They know it, right? So the minute you send that
Yeah,
vibe
yeah.
out, like, well, I'm just here to teach, and I really don't care. This is a paycheck or whatever. The students sense it, and then they're like, well, screw this. Let's make this place a miserable place. We're just gonna make this a miserable place because you
Mm-hmm.
don't care, and guess what? We don't care now. We all don't care in this
Mm-hmm.
room, so we're gonna make it miserable. So
Yeah.
if you take that approach, like, oh, I'm just here to teach, and I don't care. This is just a paycheck. You're not my kids, and like that whole idea, you're gonna have a miserable time. You're gonna have a definitely miserable time. And then the other thing is like, if you're the super, you can build relationships, but you can't
Mm.
say no to a student. You can't just like you can't like smile, be like, hey, you're joking, like, hey, and then you go, no,
Yeah.
that's not okay. What you said right there,
Mm-hmm.
you can't say that. You can't do that. And you just draw that. You're happy. Hey, that's what'd you say? Like if
Yeah.
you can't do that,
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna walk all over you. So you have to build those relationships, joke, 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 friendly, friendly. All right, guys, all right. But then the minute that you feel that feeling in your body that's like, that's wrong. I feel it and I need to say something, you need to say it. You need to draw that line. And that's an issue that people have. And then the other approach is like, well, let me just be angry and mad and upset, and let me be punitive and like you gave a great example of this.
Mm-hmm.
Students don't open up. Students don't talk in that room. Students don't share anything. They're just there in their seats. They're quiet, and you just got just quiet. It,
Mm-hmm.
it's not a good place
Yeah.
for learning, right? So you have to have it all. You have to have it all. You have to build relationships. You have to draw the line. You have to have it engaging, assignments, and you have to demonstrate that
Yeah.
you love the
Yeah.
students. You
And
got to
yeah,
do it
that's
all.
it's tough,
Yeah.
especially when you're a new teacher and you're trying to navigate this, like because and the thing is like when I was a new teacher, I was like super inspired. Like I wanted to be the best teacher ever, right? I wanted to get these kids doing great things
Right.
and believing themselves and achieving. And so the majority of the books that I read, and any like YouTube was I think just coming out, but I don't think it had really teachers on there at the time. This was like 2009. So, but the majority, like the PD I was going after myself, was all on engagement strategies, right? It was on pedagogy, it was on inspiring kids, it was on reaching kids and getting them motivated to work harder and to do history stuff. And but that wasn't what was missing in my classroom. I just didn't have the classroom management part. So all those other things, like all the like, here's the thing:
Yeah.
none of us go into teaching in order for the classroom management part. None of us go into teaching to be great classroom managers. I can't wait to hold kids accountable today in school. I can't wait to get them to come in quietly into my room and to get to working and to cross all the T's. No, we
Yeah.
become teachers for all the butterfly things, like to inspire them, to make them better people. Yeah, because we had a teacher that
To
believed in us,
inspire.
made us feel differently about who we could become. That's why we become teachers. So A lot of teachers, they focus on all those great strategies and how to engage kids and activities. But if you are struggling with classroom management, you can't get to all those other things. And that's what I was realizing. But it took me a while before I realized, oh, wait, this is the big hole that's causing all my other problems. And then luckily I found that one book that just changed the game. Because what's ironic about classroom management is this: when you struggle with classroom management and you're not focusing on it, it's like all you do. You're just putting out fires. That's what I was when I was first starting. But once you get
Yeah.
really good, like the people
Yeah.
who are great at classroom management, it's they almost don't have to manage their students. Things seem to operate seamlessly in the classroom.
That's
And
right.
this is why I think it's hard for
That's
teachers
right.
who are struggling to learn. Because if you just imagine you're a struggling new teacher, or maybe you've been in the game for a while, but you still just can't figure it out. And then you go and observe Mr. Johnson in E10, and he's fantastic. And you see that when the bell rings, the kids come quietly into class and they get going on their work. And then Mr. Johnson claps twice and the kids all clap back. And then he says, okay, today, guys, we're going to be doing this. And they're listening. And now he explains the instructions and says, I need you to go get your supplies and then return to your desks with your group. And almost like magic, like a spell has been cast upon them. These same kids that are driving you nuts 2 doors down are somehow, when he says go get the supplies and get into your group work, they walk, they grab their glue sticks, they grab their markers. No one was stabbed with a Sharpie or whatever, and no one's coloring on the walls, and it didn't turn into 5 minutes. They
Mhm.
got their poster boards. So it's really hard as a new teacher. You're like, how did that just happen? Because you don't see what's happening behind the scenes. You don't see that he's meeting them or connecting, getting
Yeah.
to know them. You don't see that he's practiced the entrance routine 20 times that school year. You don't see that he's practiced how to, he showed them step by step how to get their supplies and return to their seat and what volume they should be talking about in their group work. You aren't seeing that. You're seeing the results
Yeah.
of this teacher who puts in all these little things that removes all the headaches ahead of time. You prevent, like, all the
Yeah.
procedures and routines. That's preventative classroom management. And it's removing the headaches that you would otherwise have before they arise. And that's why it's, I think, tough for new teachers, because when you're observing someone, there's just, they're not having to manage a classroom because it's so much stuff is seamless because they figured all that stuff out. And kids know, they see
Yeah.
you as confident, they see that you're in control. And when a kid does step out of the line because he's a tough kid or he's a
Yeah.
um, strong-willed kid, you can, Michael, okay, and that's sometimes enough.
That's it.
Occasionally, sometimes they'll still, and you have to do a little more, but it's crazy. And then the teacher who's watching is like, "What?" So um, that's that's why I'm passionate about
Yeah.
helping teachers figure out those things that are happening behind the scenes that really work, that make all the difference.
So that right there, where you said Michael and you made that face right there, for me, that if you're that's knowing Michael knows that you
Mhm.
care about them.
Yeah.
Michael knows that you care about them so much that you set high
Mhm.
standards. You believe in them. You want the best for them. And the minute they get out of line and it might jeopardize their future, you're like, nope, hey, nope, can't
Yeah.
do that. Stop.
Mhm.
And they realize that, and then they stop. I feel I feel like this is how it works. If you're a new teacher, you start off. You have to understand that safety is number one. You have to understand safety is number one, and the way you have safety in your classroom is by routines, procedures, structure. You didn't establish those procedures out the gate, like you were saying. You have you walk in this way, you walk out this way. When you come to the classroom, this is what you do. When the phone rings, this is the person that answers the phone. When there's somebody at the door as a knock, you're the person that answers the door, and this is how you answer the door. When you come in from the restroom, and you go through all of that, and then the class is like, oh, okay, Mr. Vergara is in charge here. He's in charge, and I feel
Yeah.
safe. I know that this is a safe place, and because it's safe, I could learn now.
Mhm.
And then that sends a message that, like, anything that you keep safe is something that you care about, right? You guard all the things that you keep safe. Like, I'm take care of my car, I take care of my children, I take care of my whatever. I guard things that I love,
Right.
right? And so if the kids are being guarded, you send the message that, oh, this person cares about me. And then the next step after safety is like, well, show them that you love them, and I made a post recently, but it's basically you show like biblical love, like love is patient,
Yeah.
love is kind, love is not rude, love is forgiving, love is, always hopes for the best. That's the type of love that you're showing to these kids, right? So you keep them safe.
Mhm.
New teachers, first thing you want to keep them safe. Second thing is you show them love. You got to show them love, and you show them this way, right?
Yeah.
This biblical love. Love is patient, love is kind, love is that way. And then after that, you have to boost their self-esteem. So you got to put them in situations where they could win, right? You put them in situations where they win. You present
Yeah.
curriculum where they could be successful with it, right? It's not way over their head, and it's just the right spot, right? And you put them in those situations, then you highlight their wins, like,
Yeah.
oh, hey Jordan, that's a good job, man. How you answered that
Yeah.
question right there. That's a different way you did that. I never seen it that way. Hey, good way.
Yeah.
I love that. What about, and you just
Yeah.
highlight their wins. You keep highlight, and now
And for those kids, for the kids that you know are challenging and difficult, and sometimes you get a feel like day one, you're like, okay, this kid might be a challenge for me. This girl might be a challenge for me. You know, you need to be very vigilant to
yeah,
look for their wins, to look for their strengths,
yes,
and to highlight them. Right? Like, oh, I saw you like clean up your workstation for your whole
mm-hmm,
group. That was awesome. Excellent job. And especially early in the year, if you can call home about something specifically positive about those kids, it might be the only positive phone call home. I've had so many parents tell me this is the first time someone called home
yep,
for Elijah on a positive note. This kid was in 10th grade and he'd never got a positive phone call home, right? So imagine what he thinks about when he comes to school. I'm always just getting in trouble. I'm
mm-hmm,
always messing up. I don't do well here. I struggle here, right? So they're telling a story to themselves. And when you do little things like that, informally in class, just, hey, great job. Hey, that was awesome. That
mm-hmm,
answer was super original and creative. That was such an awesome question. No, I've never had a kid ask that. Or you call home, take it one step further. What you're doing is you're helping that kid
that's right,
rewrite the story he or she's
that's right,
telling about himself. And that's how you really change
mm-hmm,
things for them, you know? Because it's not enough that we just believe in the kids. We got to get those kids who don't believe in themselves to believe in
yes,
themselves, right? It starts with us. Step
yes,
one, believe in them because they won't believe in themselves if you don't believe in them. Step two is, you have to, that's the long haul, getting them to
yeah,
start believing in themselves, building up their
that's,
confidence, getting them successful,
that's right,
highlighting what they're doing well. Because those kids sometimes they don't recognize when they are doing well. They have a low self image. They have, even though they might seem, some of them are the tough kids, they still guarding underneath that, they're hiding a lot of insecurities. Like there's the puffer
mm-hmm,
fish that blows up and looks really scary. It has all like the
yeah,
defensive stuff. And then when the threat goes away,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and they're scared and they're small and they're vulnerable. And that's how a lot of our kids are. They act tough and big and strong, but then they're masking the same way
Yeah, and
we
you
see
have
in
to be
nature,
able
right?
to recognize as a teacher, and this is probably more veteran teacher stuff, but like if you see that, you're right, you have to be able to call it out. Call it out. Like I call it out today. I was like, "Hey, you're the most sweetest person in the world. When you hang out with, like, when I ask you to help the first graders, right? You're the most sweetest person. They love you in that classroom, right? But then now you're in dance right now, and then you're being rude to the instructor right here, right? For whatever reason, I don't know why, and you're demonstrating a side that's like not really you for the attention of the
Mm-hmm.
kids in the classroom, right? So that's not you. You don't need to do that, right? I know who you are, and you're a kind, loving person, and that's the person that we need to see in this dance class right here, right? That's what
Yeah,
you have to call them out when you know there's good in them, and you're like, hey, look at what you're doing right there. That's not okay. You're better than that, and I need you to act this
yeah,
way. And every time you act this way, I'm gonna call you out on it. It's not out of I'm angry, or it's out of love because I'm trying to make you a better person. You got to call those guys out
yeah,
on something like that. So, and I think that's a more veteran move. That's maybe like that's a tough move to handle when you're I don't know, a first year teacher or whatever. But
yeah. But when you see it, you might recognize it, and you'll start, you know, piecing all those things together. But I love how you said how after like loving them and or creating safety and then loving them, and the next thing is building up their confidence. And I think especially at the secondary level, elementary teachers might know this more and be more attuned to it. But like if kids are coming into your room and they're just struggling, and they're going to some of these kids are going to start acting out because if they can't get positive attention by doing well, some of them they want attention. So
That's
they're going
right.
to get it another way. So one of the most important things is to get your kids successful in your class. If you have to differentiate, and it's hard. I know, the secondary level. I had kids in my class who read at a second grade level and read at
That's
a
right.
12th grade level, right? And how do especially in your new teacher, you're struggling to just create your lesson plans and learn the content you're teaching. You're a chapter ahead of the kids or whatever. And now you have to differentiate for all these different. Sometimes you can just say, you know what, on this worksheet, answer any 10. There's 15 questions, so answer any
Mhm.
10. And that way the kid knows that, okay, I don't have to get all of them, right? Or you walk over to those kids that struggle and just say, hey, this one, if you can do this, it's going to count as bonus. And I would love to see you try, but don't sweat it if you can't figure it out. You can move on to the next one. And you can just with a little highlighter, just choose the ones that are for you didn't have time because you're a busy
Yep.
teacher with a million things to do. So you didn't get to create a separate sheet for the student or a separate activity for them. But you can just make a quick note, let them, get in their ear and say, hey, you guys can just ignore these ones. If you can do it, that's great. I'm proud just gave it a shot, but you don't have to do it. And even if they struggle on some of the other ones, the fact that you're meeting them halfway, the fact that you're going out of your way to again, massage, you're building up that relationship. You're just showing them you care and that you're going to do what you can
Yeah.
to get them successful, right?
Yeah. I have a
Yeah.
question for
So
you.
sure.
Can a school function when admin and the teachers don't get along? Can a school function move? Can that school move in a positive direction when admin and teachers don't get along?
So I rural Title One school, we have a lot of teacher turnover and we had a lot of admin turnover. My first 3 years, we had four different principals and the VP staffs were just bouncing around. Like generally, like teachers were getting asked to step in.
Yeah.
And we it, a lack of consistency is never good. But then we had this one principal who was trying to ruffle a lot of feathers and change things up before, just like teaching, just like how we are with our students. We need to make the connection, build up the trust, show that we care, that sort of thing. This
Yeah.
principal did not do that. Just came in kind of with her agenda, trying to make big changes. And through our campus that year was so toxic. If that was my first year, I would not have come back. I would have looked
Hmm.
for a job. It was so toxic. Like when we had our full faculty meetings, you could just feel the tension,
Yeah.
and even you just didn't even. I wasn't normally faculty meetings. I'm just kind of I have my teacher besties, and some of them are way uphill. We have a big campus, so I get to see the faculty meetings. So I'm happy to see them. In Hawaii we talk story, so just chewing the fat with them. That year it was just so toxic. Not it. It is, yeah. To answer your long story short, it is really hard for a school to make progress if the admin is at locking horns with the staff and the staff is not on board. It is really tough with that lack of trust. Like trust is just fundamental for any organization, and if these teachers have especially like a union school, we have, or union state rather, we have considerable power. So that
Hmm.
way anything the admin tried to do that wasn't fully by the book in the contract, nope, everyone,
Yeah.
the vast majority of the staff just dug in their heels. So any small little change that otherwise would be pretty seamless and okay, no, and
Yeah.
just led to this really combative
Yeah.
environment and community. And we were being evaluated by WASC that year. You guys have
Yeah.
WASC over
Hmm.
there
Hmm.
for accreditation,
Yeah.
and they were like, all these other academic things is not important compared to you guys patching up your community and your relationships between the staff.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, no, it's so important for admin, for teachers to be able to trust admin, for admin to go to great lengths to show that they're there for the teachers, to back up and support the teachers, to follow through when they say they're going to be out, to be out and to be visible. So
Yeah.
important. I was just visiting a school and observing some teachers, and the principal was out in the parking lot greeting all the teachers, greeting all the kids, saying hi to the parents. And he had these little, in Hawaii, it's mana'o. It's like wisdom.
Mhm.
These little mana'o cards, like mantras. And it said it in Hawaiian, but then it also said it in English, like, I will be resilient today and not give up. And he's
Cool.
handing them to the kids and asking
That's
them,
good.
so what does that mean to you? So how can that change how you act today? I'm going to be caring and loving today. Okay, how can you do that to your peers? How can you do that to your teacher? And he was doing this, and it was
That's
just
good.
really heartwarming to see the admin not just out and waving, but doing these little things to build community. Sharing them with the teachers, having the teachers do that, and it's just, I think when admin goes out of their way to show that they're there, they're not just behind their desks. And I get it, they're busy as heck too. But yeah, teachers need great admin on their side, supportive and
Yeah.
out on campus, showing themselves.
So why is there so much pushback against admin? Why do you think? Are like, I mean, you said you've been to a bunch of different schools, you visited a bunch of different, you've seen a bunch of different admin, right? Why do you think teachers like, people put in my comments, right? They put some wild things in my comments, like you should quit and give your salary to teachers, and you should like just some ridiculous things, right? Like they don't even know me, right? And they're just you over here saying some ridiculous things, right? Um, why do like,
I mean, I think there is an issue with on some. I always had my admin was generally very supportive of me when I needed something. They were there. I could lean on them. I could ask them to help me with something, whether it was funding for a program I wanted for my kids or for some books for the kids. They were generally supportive for me. Not every teacher had the same relationship. I think because I had like, good credibility on campus with them, they were very helpful. But I think on a lot of I've also had the times where I did have to send a kid out for being just, he's going off in class, like standing up on the desk, like
yeah,
going crazy, and I'm just like, pick up the phone, security, come here, I need you to take out Manalele to the office. And it comes sent out, big incident in class. I'm still like kind of heated, like, holy moly, trying to teach, the kids are trying to learn, it's settled down, and then the kid comes back 10 minutes later with a lollipop and a swagger, and they had a quick little conversation. The kid got some positive, got some attention from the VP, and then was sent back to class, saying that he's going to do better and not act out again. But he's trying to show off for the rest of the kids that, hey, this is what just happened to me. This is the consequence I got. And it's frightening how often that I hear that happens, that I send a kid out, I get no support. So I think if that's happening, if teachers feel undermined and they're not being supportive, I think that can lead there. I also do
yeah,
get it from the admin's point of view that some teachers
yeah,
might be calling the office way too much and not handling any of the behaviors in their class. Um, and that's obviously not good. So I can see administration being really frustrated and like, I can't solve all your problems and sending them back. But um, at a certain point, like if a kid is acting out and exhibiting certain behaviors, I do feel like those behaviors are above the teacher's pay grade, metaphorically, and need an admin response for them. And if teachers aren't getting that support, I could see
yeah.
that. So
And this right here, full circle, when the video that you posted, right? The video you posted about, I don't agree with what this person had said, right? About you lose your power if you send students out, right? And you said that you did not agree with that. Is that
yeah,
correct?
I don't think it's a good to clarify. Most of the time, it's not good to just send a kid out if they're acting out or something in class. But under certain that it shouldn't, you're not losing your power if you send out the kid occasionally if they're exhibiting certain behavior. It shouldn't just be removed. It's like a tool
Yeah.
that occasionally you have to use. And if you're telling teachers, hey, never send a kid out of your room because that is undermining your authority, you should be able to handle all things in your room. Ideally, you should. But once a kid's acting
Mhm.
outright defiant or exhibiting potentially violent or just really disrespectful behavior that other students aren't safe or aren't able to learn, like you said, number one thing is safety. So if a kid is just disrupting everyone's
Safety.
ability to learn and all the remediations you're doing just aren't working, this kid will not respond. Sometimes I think it'll help
Mm,
your authority if you remove that child and they faced a consequence. It'll undermine your authority
yeah.
if you ask admin for support and then they give them a lollipop and send them back to class. That is true. But if you're getting
Mm,
support and an admin is there to handle it when those certain behaviors are being exhibited, I think that's what we need, that partnership. There needs to be a partnership between the teachers and admin and parents. And right now,
yeah.
it seems like it's really out of whack. And I know so many teachers are drowning and feeling overwhelmed, like they aren't being supported.
Yeah.
So,
There's
yeah,
some real hurt. There's some real hurt because I did not expect that to like that little clip. That's just a clip
yeah,
over like a whole 45-minute long video, right? It's just a small clip, but that little clip right there was such a big deal. There were so many comments and there were so many things. I just got a Google alert today about that clip being put in a blog and it used my name, John Vergara. And I was like, what? What is this? And I was like, oh my God, they're still talking about this video about if you lose your power, if you, and so I
yeah.
want to talk about that. So let's talk about me. Could an assistant principal lose his power if he doesn't do what he's supposed to do in his pay grade? Yes. Let me tell you an example. Let's say there's assault in the classroom. Let's say there's assault in the classroom. This one student punches the teacher, gets sent to my should be me. I should handle that. Administration should handle that. But if I, as an administrator, slap on the wrist, like you were saying, give them a lollipop, right? If I just say, hey, you promise not to do that again.
Mhm.
Okay, you promised. All right,
Yeah.
you get to go back in the classroom.
Mhm.
I lose my power as administrator because I didn't handle it correctly. That's my thing, and I didn't handle it correctly, and I lose my power with all the kids. He goes back and says, "Hey, you can do whatever you want. Mr. Vergara's not gonna do anything. He can slap you on the wrist, say, hey, I can punch a teacher, go right back.
Yeah.
I lose power. I lose respect. The teacher's like, what?
Mhm.
What did he do? He didn't do anything. More, he lose my power there as well. Parent, lose my power with the parents. Like I could lose my power if something gets sent my way. That's something that I should
Yeah.
handle. I need to handle it properly. You assaulted that person. Okay, that's an assault. We're gonna have to call police. That's an assault because you just hurt somebody. I have to go through the checklist of all the things I have to do and ensure that I do
Mhm.
all the right things to keep my power because that's something that as an administrator I need to handle, right? If I don't handle things that are mine, I'm not giving an example of things that are mine as an administrator. If I don't handle drugs in the classroom, alcohol in the classroom, if I don't handle guns, knives in the classroom, if I don't handle assaults, if I don't handle sexual harassment, if I don't handle harassment over like protected groups, if I don't do those
Yeah.
things, um, then I'm
Mhm.
an ineffective administrator. All those things are things that I should handle, right? Those things are I should handle. Crisis.
Yeah.
If somebody says they want to harm themselves, okay, right here, I got to make the calls. I got to call the department of, I got to do all these things to make sure that, that's in place. I got to handle all those things. And so, other than that, I think that the teacher needs to handle their part, right? So, if it's not drugs and it's not alcohol, it's not all the things I just talked about, right? Well, then that should be with the teacher should handle all other things, right? And my job as administrator is to help teachers.
Yeah.
Um, it's the idea of if you give a man
Yeah.
a fish today, he'll eat today. But if you give him a fishing pole, right, they're gonna eat
Mhm.
for a lifetime. My job as administrator is to make sure that hey, these are things that you
Yeah.
give me. These are things that you handle, and you could handle it this way. Start with safety. Show them love, build up their self-esteem. You do that, right? All you gotta do is that. If you do that, and there's a problem right in your classroom, and it's getting
Yeah.
out of hand, and okay, send it my way. I'll handle that, right?
Yeah.
But if you handle yours, if you handle all of that through what I just talked about right now, man, the kids are gonna respect you. Man, the kids are gonna respect because I'm sure that the kids respected you when you didn't have to send anybody to the classroom because you did all those things already and you didn't have to send anybody. They're like, man, I respect
Yeah.
Mr. Lure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely true. The more, and that's what, like, when we work at setting limits, like, we tell the school, like, teachers should be able to handle like 95% of the, once they're well equipped and know how to manage students and know how to hold them accountable, build relationships, get those routines and procedures. Like, 95% of behaviors should be handled in class.
Mm-hmm.
Occasionally something's going to happen where you need admin, or like, but the thing, what, like, when a new teacher is struggling, see, this is where I think it's like one of those gray areas, right?
Yeah.
You're struggling, you're overwhelmed, and you have this kid who's just, you can't get him engaged. You're trying to connect with him, but that's not enough. You're trying to give consequences, but they're not working. Like, you move his seat, you ask him to, go to the back of the room, go to the front of the room. You ask him, I'm going to hold you in for, for recess, even though I know that's in a lot of campuses, you can't do that, or I'm going to speak to you after class, or I'm going to call home. And you still are just like at your wit's end.
Yeah.
You're not even having the ability to teach. I think in a lesson, if a kid is just setting off fireworks, metaphorically, just like da da da, then you can't teach. I think the ability, like, when I occasionally needed to do that, even as a new teacher, I wasn't relying on it because I was trying to handle the stuff in my room. Just being able to call and say, but I guess you're kind of agreeing because you're saying at a certain level, admin does need the
Yeah.
support. So I think we're
Yeah. And
on the right,
we're
on the in line on that.
so a good admin recognizes who needs the most help, right? So a good admin recognizes I got a year one, year two teacher right here.
Mm-hmm.
I got to make sure that this person, that phone call, they're really struggling, and I
Yeah,
got to go up there and I got to handle it, and I got to make sure that if Mr. So and so says that they need to come back for lunch, and that person's not back for lunch, I better go find that kid out in the yard, out on the playground, bring them back up to the classroom to make sure that that student knows that when Mr. So and so says this is going to happen,
yeah,
and I got to make sure that that happens. A good admin would recognize that.
yeah,
A good admin is not going to be like, well, I'm not going to go into that classroom because that's not considered all this the list of things that I go in for. No, a good admin is going to be like, oh, I recognize that's a year one teacher, that's a year two teacher, that's a year three teacher,
yeah,
and they're struggling with that student. So I'm going to go up there, I'm going to sit in the classroom, and I'll sit in the back, and I'll make sure that's a good admin. Now,
yeah.
if you're just sending students out for
Willy nilly.
anything, well, that you will lose your power. You will lose your power, and that power will be given to somebody else because you can handle that.
Yeah.
But a good admin will recognize, like, no, that I need a help here.
Yes.
Would you agree to that?
Yeah, because, and yeah, the admin, like, a lot of those teachers are desperate. Like, they will want to be able to handle those situations themselves, and they're just overwhelmed. I don't think they're just trying to pass the buck onto somebody else because this kid's annoying, he's frustrating, he drives me nuts. So once he steps out of line, all right, out. I'm sure that does happen, but yeah, like, when the teacher's struggling, if the admin is there to be able to support, to be able to help, to be able to get them resources, observe teachers, maybe an educational assistant in the room, some resources to help that teacher be able to help themselves, that is
Yeah.
ideal, right? And like you said, teach a man to fish, and it's much better, right? Like, luckily, that student, that first day of school that got into the fight in my class and then was kind of like threatened that he was going to kick my ass the next day, excuse my language, my
Yeah.
butt the next day. Um, Luckily, the admin realized, like, okay, we have this new teacher, he's super passionate, and this class is already going to be crazy trouble for him. And this student did come back from a suspension after poisoning a sub. They removed the student from the special learning environment. My class, I don't know if his whole schedule was affected by it, but they moved him into like a smaller, like a self-contained classroom for my period. And that was a life sentence. I don't know if
Mhm.
I would have been able to survive that class if my admin hadn't stepped in and given me that support. So yeah,
Yeah.
great. Like, teachers need great admin. They need that support from them so that we can all work together to do what's best for the students. Because we haven't brought this up, but, like, 10% of your students cause 90% of your behavior issues. And for you, it's even less
That's right.
you might have your frequent flyers that are coming to the office multiple times. They're the ones causing the majority of the issues. And if you can actually get them to be confident, if you can get them to understand that there are limits, if you can get
Hmm.
them to understand that, hey, we're here to help you and we want you to be successful and we're going to hold you to a high bar, but we're going to help you get there. Once you get those, you're in a different game when you get those 10% to start
Yeah.
improving their behavior. That's what I didn't realize as a new teacher was that, oh, if you actually can get these kids, it's going to be on board and you can help these kids, you're all so much is going to get better.
Yes.
And that's just
Yes.
that for new
And that's
teachers, getting the ability to learn how to manage those students and to work with those students and to encourage those students, that is so, so, so important.
and that's the whole idea of my TikTok is how to build relationships with students with difficult behavior. That's it.
Yeah.
How do you work with
Yeah.
students? And if you could figure that out, you win. If you
Yeah.
could figure that out, you win. It's easy.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And people are like, no, I write these kids off. They need to get suspended, send them out. All these wild things, right? But if you could build that relationship with this, if you could figure out how to win with these students, then you'll win in the classroom. That's
Yeah.
the bottom line. But I
Absolutely.
want to make this one point. I know it's getting late. We're on that 1 hour mark, but I want to make this one point real quick.
Yeah.
The reality of admin, right? So let's just say I'm the admin and I'm the only admin right now on campus and I'm dealing with a crisis. Some student says they want to harm themselves. And now I'm in the office. I can't leave the student, right? I'm dealing with this and I get a phone call and it's somebody's popping off in the classroom. Something's happened in the classroom. That's a reality. And
Mhm.
not all times admin could go to the classroom because there are things that are more important that they have to
Mhm.
take care of. And so there are times when I'm like dealing with a situation, like, and I'm the only admin on campus and I get a call and I'm like, hey, you know what? I can't go up right now. I'll send a staff, but I can't go.
Mhm.
I can't go because
Yeah.
I'm dealing with this.
Yeah.
And that's a reality. And when I was a dean, it was the same thing. It was like myself and the assistant principal with like 1,000 students. And if we get stuck in the office with some sort of crisis and we get a phone call and we didn't teach our teachers how to manage difficult behavior, because I'm all about let's teach them how to fish. Let's teach them. If we didn't do that, they're going to struggle. They're going
Mhm.
to struggle. So I feel like it's so important that that teachers learn how to manage these difficult behaviors, because there are times when admin can't leave. They can't go, not because they don't want to go, not because they're sitting down drinking coffee and eating a donut.
Yeah.
They just can't go because there are things that they're taking care of, and that's just the
And
reality of things.
and that's why the trust is so important, that when, if the teachers trust admin and vice versa and it's reciprocated, and an admin says that, oh, they're more likely to become understanding of that situation. But when there isn't that trust, it's like
Yeah.
when if an admin reports that to the teacher, it just breaks down. But something we, with setting limits when we're helping schools, we really recommend them to have something called a reset room or a refocus room, where if a kid is not exhibiting like violent behavior or having drugs or some kind of crisis that needs definitely admin um, working with them, maybe they're getting really emotional, really heated, or they're just acting out. This reset room, it doesn't need to be admin. It could be some other role on campus, right? It could be an EA type of a position, or one school that I was just working with as a coach. It's a place where students can refocus. There's some work for them to do. If they're like really emotionally about to blow, there's like coloring books for them to be able to calm down,
Yeah,
social emotional stuff for them in there. And we think that's a great
that is a good idea.
resource, but not every school has that. But there's like a reset room where students can go. If they're being disruptive, just like 10 minutes away from your audience. Because sometimes the best consequence is like they're doing it for attention. They're doing it for attention. You tried to like remove them to the back of the room or change their seats. That didn't work. And they're still acting out after you change their seat. Then maybe just 10 minutes in a reset room for them to be able to refocus, face the consequence of losing their audience. We think that is something that can really help too, because sometimes they're
I
just
like
acting
that. Yeah.
out for attention, and then that's just a logical consequence. You're doing this for attention. You're acting
Yeah.
out. Okay, 10 minutes. No admin needs to get involved. 10 minutes, you come back. You should be able to refocus. So
Yeah. That's a good idea. I love the idea. One of the ideas I use too is I tell a student like, hey, you're being rude in the classroom right here. Let's you're a kind person. Let's go work with the first graders.
oh,
I'll go down there. Let's go work with the
power.
first graders. Be successful with the first graders, right? Read to them,
Mhm.
right? Let's go ahead and read to the first graders. Something like that. Hey, the second grade class needs your help. I know you're struggling right here in this classroom, but let's go over there and I want you to help. Can you
Yeah,
help? And they're like, oh yeah, I'll help, Mr. Vergara. That
yeah.
works too.
You can empower them again, and they're feeling like they have something to to give, something of worth, something of value, right? Or even sometimes you can remove the kid from class by saying, "Hey, you need to go take a walk, go get a drink of water, but
Yep.
go to the far water fountain,
Yep.
cool off. But when you come back, I expect you to be getting back and helping your team
Yeah.
because that's what's expected, and you can't be that whatever behavior, right? So sometimes that's an effective removal of class just for them to refocus, collect themselves, calm down, get a drink of water. Kids don't drink enough water to begin with. Probably always a good move. Yeah.
Yeah. Mr. Lewer, we're coming toward the end of the podcast, and I always ask my guests, I ask them three tips. What are three tips that you could give to the future educators that are watching this podcast? Um, and so, at the beginning of the podcast, I had told you, hey, I'm gonna ask you three tips when it gets to the end of the podcast, and you're like, oh, after this long conversation, right? We went over like we were supposed. After this long conversation, what are three tips, or just any tips that
Sure.
you could give to future educators?
Number one is to work on sparking curiosity. So many of our students come to school and they're just waiting to be told what to do. They're just so tuned out, especially at the secondary level. Kindergarten teachers, first grade teachers, maybe not so much because your kids are still like excited and enthusiastic. But as school goes on, kids are just looking to fill in the blank, cross, you know, do the work that the teacher's already given to them. Try to inspire a sense of wonder in them so they want to figure out what's going on in class. So they have an intrinsic motivation. We have a curiosity crisis in secondary schools, and whatever you can to just ignite their imaginations to build back that sense of wonder, that will help with behavior management because it's going to help with your kids being engaged. If kids aren't curious, it's just compliance. The second thing I would say is to reiterate something I said earlier, don't take it personally. Some
Yeah.
of your kids are dealing with things that would horrify you. I was just working with a teacher who was so hard on herself, like looked like she was ready to quit. And this one kid was acting out in class, getting up, walking around, dropping F bombs left and right. And then when I was talking to her after class, oh yeah, that kid's dad's in jail for a sexual assault. He was previously homeless. He just moved in with his auntie, but his mom
Mhm.
is still homeless and living on the streets and on the beach. And then I'm like, okay, it's a miracle. This kid is still was able to do half of the assignment. And yeah, he's
Yeah.
acting out and you can get better at that. But what he's dealing with, the fact that he is coming into class on time, doing work, doing some of the stuff, and only exhibiting those behaviors, you're doing great things for this kid. And have grace for yourself, right? Give grace
Mhm.
to your kids, give grace to yourself. So don't take it personally and realize that you're helping kids a lot of help with those difficult kids. And a third thing is, you know, have some fun with the kids, even if it's going to take away a
Yep.
little bit from the standards. If kids are coming to your class and they're excited and having fun, then you're able to get them to achieve at a higher level because they want to be there. So don't ever think that there's a high cost to fun by focusing too much on standards. Have fun with your kids, get them to want to be in your room because if kids are coming into your room wanting to be there, you'll be able to do great things with them.
Perfect. And where could they find you on social media? How do they find Mr. Lewer on social media?
Yeah, so my handles on most of the platforms are at History for Humans. I think if you just type in Dan Lewer and a lot of them, you'll find me as well. I have historyforhumans.com. And if you're interested in any professional development for your school in terms of management, in terms of community building, we also we have trauma trainings. You can go to settinglimits.com, because yeah, we work with schools all over the country, actually internationally as well. And yeah, so you can check me out there as well.
Perfect. Mr. Lewer, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It was a great conversation. We went longer than I thought we were going to go, but it was very interesting and intriguing, and I enjoyed speaking with you. It was a great
It
conversation.
was fun, John. Thanks for having me on. We'll do it again.